There was this Dr. Weinbaum. He worked in a synagogue in Pennsylvania. He was a rabbi, and he's also a doctor in philosophy. He's there, and he begins a new career, his new tenure as this rabbi in a small community in Pennsylvania. And he gets a phone call from this guy. He says, "Rabbi, I have a problem. I have a stomachache." The rabbi says, "I'm not a doctor in in medicine. I'm a doctor in philosophy. I don't know how to heal your I don't know how to heal your stomachache. Okay. I know your stomachache. I'm a doctor in philosophy." So a week later, he gets another call that calls him Rabbi. Same guy. He says, "Rabbi, um, I hurt my feet. I need help with my feet." The rabbi's like, "Don't worry, uh, but I can't help you. I'm not the guy who could assist you there because I'm just a doctor in philosophy." So the guy is losing his patience. He says, "Rabbi, what kind of disease is philosophy?" So, a similar way, we learn a lot this week about. Okay, it's okay. So, so, so. Um, this week we're learning about Avram Avinu and about the promise of Hashem to Avram to have a child. The Ramban says something very fascinating. He says the foundation of our faith is the following. He says anyone who doesn't acknowledge that everything that happens in their life, both things happen to them individually, and both things that happen to our people, if you don't understand that this is a hidden miracle of Hashem, he says you have no connection to the Torah of Moshe Levin. You have to realize that everything that happens to you is a miracle of Hashem. It's a sodom it's a foundation of our faith, and it is critical to being connected to the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu. To know that everything that happens to you is a miracle of Hashem. So there's a teaching of the Divrei Seifrim. Divrei Seifrim was written by the Tzidkas, by the Chesed Moblin. He writes that a Jew should never give up hope, no matter what happens. If we have an issue, God forbid, a medical issue, so we have to trust in Hashem. As the Talmud says, even if there's a knife in your throat, don't never give up hope. And even if it's a spiritual issue, a person has transgressed a sin that the Zohar says is punishable with A, B, and C, that the rectification for this mistake is seemingly impossible. He says you cannot give up hope. Why can't you give up hope? Because the whole foundation of the Jewish people is through a miracle. It only exists through a miracle. The first Jew was born, the building of the Jewish people is based on the miracle, the birth of Yitzchak. How was Yitzchak born? Yitzchak was born after everyone gave up. After Avram and Sarai reached an age where it was impossible to have children, when things were impossible, that's when Yitzchak was born. So it's to give us a message in our lives that as Jews, to realize the Jewish people are miraculous people. As the Ramban says, anything that happens to you in your life, you have to realize that it's really a miracle of Hashem. It's a hidden miracle. It's hidden, but it's a miracle. Rabbi Yaakov Emden writes this fascinating comment about this. He says, greater than the miracles of the Exodus from Egypt, greater than the miracles of the splitting of the Red Sea, is the existence of the Jewish people in the exile. The fact that we still survive. Is look at all the different mighty nations that have come and gone, and we're still here. It's clear to me, Yaakov Emden writes, it's clear to me that our existence is a greater miracle than the Exodus, the splitting the Red Sea, than the 10 plagues. The fact that we're here, and the longer the exile goes on, and we're still here, and we're the most persecuted of all nations, and despite us being the most persecuted, we're still here. That itself is the biggest proof of Hashem, of the reality of Hashem, and it tells us a lot about not just about where we come from, and the miracles that Hashem does for us, but also tells us a lot about our approach to serving Hashem. What serving Hashem means. The parallel for nature and miracles in our lives, nature represents logic, things which have a normal order. And a miracle in our service of Hashem means serving Hashem beyond what is natural, beyond what logic says. To serve Hashem in a way that's beyond measurement, beyond boundaries. So just like we're not supposed to give up hope, no matter what happens to us physically or spiritually, so too says the says Chassidus that our whole approach to Judaism has to be with absolute faith in Hashem, with devotion to Hashem beyond logic and reason. There's a famous teaching in the Orach Chaim about Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu, the reason they passed away was because they entered into the Holy of Holies, and they went and did something that they shouldn't have done. They says the Orach Chaim that too much love. Their love for Hashem was Yedidus, Arivas, Mesikos, with so much love, so much warmth, that their souls left their body. So the Torah says they did something that God did not command them. So the Chusharim says, if they come close to Hashem with such love, that's not what Hashem commands. However, when you don't have the love, you don't have the feeling, and you're still pushing yourself forward, do what Hashem wants you to do, even though you don't feel it, that's the highest thing. It's the highest thing. You're doing what Hashem wants you to do, even though you don't feel it. Asher loy, if you don't have that love, then tziva yisem. That's actually you're getting it right. You're getting it right. As Rebbe once told someone, the beginning of serving Hashem is you don't do what you want to do, you do what you don't want to do. For the sake of you prefer to do what Hashem wants you to do, no, you don't want to do it, or you don't do what you want to do. That's the beginning of serving Hashem. And the person Rebbe told us to ask the Rebbe, am I up to that level? Can I do that? Rebbe said every Jew is up to that level. So that's one thing we learn from Avram Avinu and the birth of Yitzchak, the miracle of the birth of Yitzchak, that our lives are miraculous, and therefore we have to always have trust in Hashem, and our approach to serving Hashem has to be with the sense of accepting the yoke of Hashem. There's another element here that I want to discuss. The book of the Mishnah Torah, Maimonides' work of halacha, doesn't have any stories in it. Just a book of clear laws. There's one exception. Maimonides goes into great length describing Avram. And when Maimonides discusses the laws of idol worship, he begins by describing the state of the world at the time of Avram Avinu's birth. And he says that there were people who worshiped the zodiac and the stars. They knew that Hashem created the stars, Hashem created the zodiac. But they felt that if Hashem created the stars and the divine sustenance of the world flows through the sun, to worship the sun, worship the moon, because since the divine flow goes through all of this, goes through it, Hashem, it must be that the sun has also importance, the moon has also importance. Their children grew up seeing their parents praying to the sun and the moon, so they thought all there is the sun and the moon. The parents' original mistake was that they thought that we're supposed to honor the sun and the moon because Hashem gives light and warmth to the world through the sun and the moon. So it's to honor the zodiac because the divine flow flows through the various angelic forces represented by the zodiac. Of course, it doesn't mean, God forbid, that there's any force, any power there. It's the Hashem giving us life through the zodiac or the sun and the moon, or it is analogous to someone who is chopping wood with an axe. The axe has no power on its own. You're just using the axe to chop the wood. Axe has no power. So too, Hashem may give sustenance and warmth and light to the sun. The sun has no power. It's just it's an axe in the hand of the wood chopper. There's no power on its own. Therefore, we're not supposed to give any credit at all to the sun. Giving any credit to the sun is idolatry. So Avram Avinu, he wakes up and he was born in a generation which not only believes that there's some other power to the sun and the moon, that there's some power to the zodiac, some power to the stars. Avram Avinu was in a generation where there is no mention of God at all. Not that God is the creator of the sun and the moon, and there are also many gods, and there's a greater God. There's no mention at all of God. And Avram, in the middle of this confusion, he begins to question all this. Avram Avinu is saying, how can you believe this? It's impossible to believe that there's no creator. because how can there be the rising and the setting of the sun? Who's moving it? Who's moving all these planets? How is it happening? The moving of the stars and the sun and the moon. There must be someone that's making this happen. And Avinu was searching and searching. And Maimonides says at the age of 40 years old, he recognized Hashem. Now we all know, we've all heard before, that Avinu recognized Hashem at the age of 3. And as the Ravid asks, how come the Rambam says he recognized Hashem at the age of 40? It says he recognized Hashem at the age of 3. And there are different sources. Some says in one place 3, one place 40, and both are true. But the Rambam is trying to teach us something by telling us that Avinu recognized Hashem at the age of 40. There's a different kind of recognition of Hashem that Avram had. There are different proofs that people use, that not just people, but tzaddikim and our rich Jewish philosophy. There is a lot of literature about proving the reality of Hashem to our minds. Maimonides begins the Mishnah Torah by saying the foundation of all foundations, the pillar of all wisdom, is to know that there is a God who created everything. There has to be a primal cause. Who is the source of everything? In the Rebbe's letters, the Rebbe tends to focus on another idea, which is like you walk into you walk in the street, you see a building which has 3 stories. You don't assume the building got there by itself, right? If you see a painting, you don't assume the painting just got there. Think about how when you eat, what happens when you eat? You put the food into your palate. Your palate tastes the food, sends a message to your brain to continue to eat, and all of a sudden, then the saliva causes your teeth start. Okay, the mind says, "Yeah, go ahead, continue eating it." Then you start chewing it with your teeth, which are right there, and then your saliva creates this doughy texture in this food, which can now be processed through your intestines, and now it's a total miraculous thing. And the more you know about the body, the more you realize what a miraculous thing the body is. That there must be an author who created the body. It's impossible. And the same as the more we know in general creation, the more we know about the creation, the more we see God's hand in creation. So what the Rambam wants to do by telling us that Avraham Avinu recognized Hashem at the age of 40, and the whole story about the philosophy of Avraham, and questioning and arguing with the philosophers of his time, and challenging the king, and the king wanted to kill him because he was bringing this heretical idea that there's a God. So Avraham Avinu's challenge to the philosophers of his time, and Avraham Avinu's recognition of Hashem through his questioning, is meant to tell us something about our own faith in Hashem. The Rambam wants to tell us that it's not only faith, it's not only believing in something which is beyond logical reason. Although the birth of the Jewish people is predicated on the birth of Yitzchak, who was born through a miracle, and our survival in history is through a miracle, and our approach to serving Hashem has to be a beyond logical reason. And as Hashem gave us the Torah, we said we will do before we understand. However, that's only step 1. Step 2 is we have to understand. And that's why the Rambam chooses to say that Avraham Avinu recognized Hashem at the age of 40. What's 40? 40 is the age the Talmud says when you reach understand. The Rambam wants to say that faith in Hashem is a very sensitive thing. It's something which really affects us. We cry to Hashem, we ask Hashem, we don't understand Hashem, we ask, we thank. Depth of our heart, it's a very, very, very powerful, very sensitive thing. And the Ram wants to tell us it's not just beyond logical reason. It's also logical. It also makes sense. It also should resonate to you as a human being, not just as a 3-year-old because of your faith in Hashem. Ram wants us to tell us it's also something that you can develop and learn and internalize. The more and more your mind develops. The more your mind develops, the more your faith in Hashem should resonate with you. In other words, there's 2 fundamental things I'm saying here. The first is, as Nachmanides says, the foundation of our faith is faith in Hashem, that everything that's happening to us is a miracle. And our service of Hashem is also beyond logical reason. That's step 1. We will do step 1. But step 2 is we also have to understand that our faith is not just supernatural, not just beyond logical reason. It also makes sense. There's a story that the Ben Ish Chai says, a fascinating story. He says that Rabbeinu Bechaya, Ibn Pekuda, had a relationship with the king of Spain. And the king of Spain will enjoy talking to him about philosophy. And he says to him one day, he said, you Jews consider Jewish people to be different. I know. You consider Jews to be different. But I want to tell you, Rabbi, that Jews aren't really different. And if I would educate a Jewish baby and a Gentile baby in the same way, they would both come out exactly the same way. Or you wouldn't be able to tell which one is Jewish, which one is not Jewish. And the king snatched a Jewish baby and a Gentile baby from two different parts of his kingdom, brought them to the palace, and they were raised in the palace as if they're twin brothers. They're 18 years old. He brings them to this rabbi who's still around, Rabbi Bechaya. He asks Rabbi Bechaya, okay, which one's the Jew? Which one's the Jew? Which one's the Gentile? Rabbi Bechaya asks, do you guys have any grapes in the kingdom? You have any grapes? Like, yeah, we got grapes. Okay. They serve grapes. There are clusters of grapes, and there are individual grapes in the tray. So one kid takes the grapes from the tray, and one kid takes the whole cluster of grapes. That's the word we use, a cluster of grapes? Yeah.
Tray?
There's a tray.
Tray.
So, and there's grapes on the tray. And there's some grapes which are clustered together, attached still to the vine. And there's some individual grapes on the tray. So one child took the grapes, a handful of grapes from the tray, and one child took the whole cluster of grapes. So Rabbeinu Bechaya says the Jewish child is the one who took the whole cluster. He said, why? Because the Jew is always looking for the connection to the source, to the roots, to the nature of a Jew, like Avram. Avram was looking at where does the world come from? The whole world could ask that question. But it's Avram Avinu who is determined to get an answer to this question, because this is the nature of who a Jew is. So bottom line is that we have these two elements within us, which is beyond logical reason, and that's a source of our approach to serving Hashem. We were born, our grandfather was born through a miracle. Our grandfather was born in a way that was impossible for him to be born. And therefore, it's fundamental to us as Jews never to give up hope, no matter what kind of mistakes we made in our lives, no matter what kind of medical issue it is, God forbid, never to give up hope. And our service to Hashem has to be beyond logical reason, our existence beyond logical reason. But at the same time, also, another important thing is, a secondary thing is, we also have to bring it down, nasa, vinish, we have to do, and also bring it into our minds as well. Not to rely on our minds. As it says in our Yom Yom, even those who are intelligent have to put their minds on the side, especially at this time when it's a confusing time. And not to veer from the code of Jewish law, even like the size of the point of the yud, but to also learn, to also bring into our minds and our hearts, but not to rely on it. Any questions or comments?
Fundamental question. I'm sorry. Abraham was how old when he
recognized Hashem. So the Ravid.
How old was he when he had suicide?
Avram Avinu was. How was Avram? He was 100 and Sarah was 90.
Okay, that's right.
The word Yitzchak is made up of a description of his birth. Tzaddik is 90, Kuf is 100, Ches is the 8 days of his circumcision, Yud the 10 tests that Avram was tested with. So his name is all about his father. Bottom line is, we're children of Avram, and through us, what's happening in our lives is miraculous. Every detail. You don't know that, says my Nachmanides, you have no connection to the Torah Moshe Levin. Whatever's happening to you is a miracle. Chaim, to see the miracle of Mashiach immediately.